Anyway, what else do we got? The other settings that have are sci-fi and science fiction. So science fiction gives us two new species, Bioroid and clones. Bioroids, they are like the droids from Star Wars in that they have mostly ones in their characteristics and you can build them up to fulfill whatever purpose, and they get a whole bunch of points to compensate for that. However, their starting characteristics aren't exactly like the droid. They're not ones across, but it's close. And of course, they're inorganic. All the benefits you would expect an inorganic being to get, they get. They also have a unique special ability that makes them more suited to take on cybernetics, which is kind of great. I actually definitely prefer the new way cybernetics work in this game. And that's kind of cool. Thing about the Bioroid, which it didn't really interest me at all, until I realized if you took this into a fantasy setting, you could make like a golem. Like from Dragon Age, the Shale, make a golem. They are a bit stronger, more physically fit naturally, and the cybernetics could be like magical enchantments or maybe runes. Maybe when you were a golem, you were carved with these little slots and holes to put magic runes into, or crystals, and that's how you could headcanon the cybernetics as magical runes if the GM will let you. That could be kind of fun. Probably a better way of making a golem than, say, the robot, which we'll get into in a second. Anyway, the clone. Clone is not terribly interesting. The clone is for settings where a factory, a corporation makes many copies of different models of clones for different... Sort of a Battlestar Galactica thing, where there were like 10 Cylon or 11 Cylon models. I should know this. There are 13. There's a bunch of Cylon models, and they were numbered, and so all the number 7s looked like Trisha Helfer, and all the number 6s or 8s looked like the Boomer. Now imagine this approach to clones is sort of like a normal everyday thing, you know, just walking down the street, you see a model number 5 or whatever, doing whatever a model number 5 does or something. I don't know how they actually work in this particular setting, Android, but that type of setting, if you're doing something similar, the clone would work. They have an ability called Face in a Crowd, which helps them blend into other clones, other copies of themselves, which doesn't really work in many other settings. Maybe this was reskinned as like robots, like you could take this archetype into Star Wars and it would be just a new way of doing droids, like a alternate version of doing droids, because you could be a 3PO unit and you just blend in with all the other 3POs easier. You know, a 3PO unit probably isn't very distinguishable from most of the others, and so that could work. But I can't think of many other settings where it would really work. Also, because they're programmed to do a task, they get a lot of extra free skill ranks, which is kind of great, and definitely fits in with the whole Star Wars droid approach. Kind of robot character. Those two aren't that interesting to me, but the sci-fi chapter has some of my favorite in the game. First of all, Animalistic Alien, which is amazing. Amazing. They are just anything and everything physical you could possibly want. They have, wow, 2 characteristics that are 3s, 3 2s, and a 1. Is there any species that has a build like that? I don't even know. 2 3s and only 1 1. That's ridiculous. They, of course, get shit when it comes to experience points, as you'd expect them to, but they get a really great natural weapons ability, which you might argue is roughly on par with the Transition Claws, but I'd say it's better. It's definitely different. It's not objectively better, but it's definitely different. I like it better. That's pretty impressive. Yeah, a nice, great physical powerhouse. Psionic, probably the most interesting, unique species in the game, and it gives you the most new cool things to do right out of the gate. The Psionic is supposed to be like a psychic alien. Obviously, it doesn't have to be. Could just be a regular old psychic. They get shit experience points as well, but they also get 3 new abilities which deal with sensing and or manipulating emotions and thoughts of people, which is great. Mind Reader, Mind Shaper, and Mind Breaker. One of them's an attack, which I don't know if it should be affected by combat skills, because there are some, like Lucky Shot, Lucky Strike, where when doing a combat check can get a benefit with Lucky Shot. That's what it says. With Mind Breaker, it's an opposed check. I don't think the intent... No, yeah, I don't think this would count as a combat check. I'm still on the fence whether or not I would allow you to have certain talents that affect combat checks affect Mind Breaker. Not really sure. I'd have to think on that. Anyway, you can change emotions, and you can read thoughts or sense emotions. The thing about this is that it's very surface level. Like, what else do you do to create a psychic character or a telepath, an empath? Do you give them magic? Do you give them a magic skill? Start putting points into your own magic skill? But then magic's so open and free form. How do you... If you just want to make like a telepath or a telepath and telekinetic, those two things are often paired together in these types of stories. You can, I guess, make a point to limit yourself to where I can only do certain spells that make sense for that concept. And this is just, you know, it goes back to my problems with the whole superhero thing, which this system is just not built to do very well. If you have like a fire blaster or this type of person, that type of person, you are limiting yourself with what you can do with the magic system by just picking that particular power concept. And so you're limiting yourself from all these things you could do unless you could find a way to skin it with your concept, with ice or with telepathy or with whatever. Ice gets so cold that it can cause damage and it can feel like it's burning, so I could get the burn quality with my ice powers, right? Right? Yeah, maybe? Do you want to keep having that discussion with players? Can I do this? Can I do that? Does this fit in my concept? Does it fit my character? You know, I think with superpowers, you need something a bit more restrictive. I don't know. Do you give them a magic skill? Call it psychic brain magic? Call it psychicness, psychic powers? Do you just sort of reward them generously if they're role-playing? You know, they're limiting themselves mechanically in order to have their character fit, or if you just want to have like a revenant person, you know, they've been revived by lightning with electricity. Maybe something happened to where they can shoot lightning. Sort of a Ernest Goes to Prison kind of thing. He got shocked with the electric chair and then he could shoot people. Maybe you have a revenant with just a bit of that, but they're limiting themselves. Do you reward them for limiting themselves? Do you put a hard limit on it? I don't know. They need to have a real superhero book where the magic system is more structured or something. Anyway, same thing here with the psychic. Not much else you could do with it except pick talents that really kind of, you're just headcanoning it. You know, talking talents or knowledge talents, which you just say, oh, I read their mind and that's how I knew the thing. Or I convinced them with my mind powers. That's why I'm so good at talking. And it's just a regular talking talent. That's all. You could do that, futz with the magic system, find a thing, a spell that works for your character, and just use the ones that work for your character, and maybe the GM will feel generous and reward you. I don't know. Next, we have the robot, who is very droid-like in almost every way, except oh, that's right, because specializations aren't a thing, so they don't get as many free ranks in your career and specialization that the droid did, but in exchange, they get Geth Brain, basically. They are Geth. The robot from the sci-fi, space opera, whatever they call it setting, Twilight Imperium, these robots, they're basically Geth. They have a networked intelligence where if there are certain robots of the same, or friendly robots in an area, you get benefits. You give each other benefits just by being close to each other, which very in line with how the Geth worked. So that's kind of great. Yeah, if you're doing a Mass Effect campaign, here's a Geth. Finally, we have the Vanguard, which are, I guess, like really advanced aliens, superior to humans. The way they talk about them, they almost brings to mind the Peacekeepers from Farscape, which look just like humans, but are better. They're just superior, technologically speaking. Let's see, they're prettier, they're smarter, and they got more money. That's about it. Really, this is a great human variant if you just want to play more of a charismatic noble or a well-educated rich asshole or something. That could work. Vanguard from the sci-fi thing. That would work for any setting, except there is a special ability. Space is our birthright, which obviously isn't going to work with every setting, so you might want to tweak that, try to, as I talked about before, try to look in the make your own species and make your own talent section and try to figure out how many points that might be worth and compensate the player for not getting that, or just have it apply to a more relevant skill. Anyway, that is it for today for the Genesys RPG archetypes. If you like this video and want to see more, come back and, watch more. That's duh, no shit. Also, if you would like to have one of your requests be an episode kind of sponsored by you, basically, well then, visit the link on Patreon.